Hey kids, welcome to Unit 3, Lesson 2, Array Elements, Exercise number 2. We have an investigate and modify that goes along with the worksheet. Before we get to the worksheet, let's take a look at our code. We're instantiating a new object data. It is from the class Array Manager. Looks like we're creating an array numbers. It is an integer. And we are using that object we created to call a method create numbers. Then it looks like we have system.out.print numbers and a 1, that's probably index 1. Well, let's see what this create numbers does. In our class create numbers instantiates a new array values, which is creating a new array, but it is empty, but it has 5 empty elements to it. Then it returns values, which is the array, which is 5 empty elements. Before we head over to the worksheet, what do I think this program does? Well, I think we create a numbers array here with 5 empty spots, and then we print off the spot number 1, which should be 0. Let's go ahead and take a look at our worksheet and see what we have to do. You should be doing this worksheet with your partner, but if you don't have one, I'll be yours today. What is currently printed when you run the code? Why? Well, kids, I always spoil the fun. As I just said, I think we're creating an array, and we're running this create numbers method, which is creating a new array that's empty with 5 element spots, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're printing off whatever is at element number 1, which is nothing. So we should get a 0. What are we going to write? Well, what is currently going to be printed? 0, because that's what prints when you have an empty integer. Well, that is the default value for an array of ints. And that's important to know, kids. If you're creating an empty array of ints, it will be 0. Doubles will be 0.0. Using the space below, draw a visual representation of a 1D array. We talked a little bit about this when we were looking at the code. There is 5 empty elements, but remember, in arrays, we start counting at 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can create one of these by going to Insert, Table, and we'll do a 2 by 5. And the top will be our value. And the bottom will be our element number. That should be our array there. Oops, I put it in the wrong spot, kids. Let's copy, put it in the right spot there. In the space below, write code to update the array so the code prints 42. And we haven't talked much about how to update an element within an array. We did see this in the last lesson, though, when we updated the number to a different paint. And if you look on the screen here, all we do is we use whatever array we're trying to update. In our case, it's going to be numbers, the element position, and then the number we want to update it to. This one just says write code to update the array so it could print 42. We could pick any element we want. Let's do 1. So that means it would just be numbers. We're going to do those square brackets. What position 1? Then we simply just do our equal, whatever the new value is going to be. Don't forget your semicolon. Oh, look down here, kids. Look at my array. I missed a number. We got to correct that anyway. There, that's right. And now at position 1, now that's going to equal 42. So we can get rid of this. Position 1 is now 42. Now we're going to head over there and see if this will actually work. We can't modify the print statements. If it doesn't print correctly, we're going to debug. So if this code doesn't work, kids, it's your code that's wrong and not code.org's code. We're going to come down here again. We are going to what? Numbers, because that's the array. And then we want to do the position we want to change, which is 1. And now that's going to be equal to 42. Well, let's go ahead and hit run and see what happens. Oh, we didn't get 42 to print. I wonder why. I think this is where the modify the print statement comes from. Let's see if we come down here and put it after my statement. What happens? So remember, in Java, it's going line by line to see what's happening. We created our array that was empty. We printed off position 1, which was 0. Then we changed the number that was there. We had to print it off again to see that value. Keep that in mind. Let's go back to our worksheet. In the space below, write one line of code to print off and the entire array. Let's look at 6.2. Using Java Lab, test your code. Do you think it's possible to print off an entire array in one line? And this is a little trick question, my friends. I'm going to bet most of you are going to come up with this answer here. So system.out.println. And what do we want to print off? Well, why don't we just print off numbers? That's the array, right, kids? Let's go ahead and test it and see, though. We have our spot there. Let's run and see what prints off. It is a location. So this goes back to our old friend stack versus heap memory. And again, when we created objects in strings, they were in heap memory, and we had to point to those memory locations. This is like an array. Look how you declare an array. Very similar. That means in order to print all of the elements in an array, we're going to have to do some different things for it to happen. So heading back here, no, I don't think it is possible with one line of code. And let's just make our answers red like the other ones, because you know I like to match, kids. And that is exercise 2 on lesson 2. Couple of key takeaways. First is how we modify elements within an array. Remember again, arrays are immutable. We can't change the size or the data type. We can change what's stored inside of them. How do we do that? Well, we call the array, square brackets, the index we want to change, equal, and whatever the new value is. If the old one was an int, new one has to be an int. Cannot change data types. Second is how we store these arrays. Understanding stack and heap memory helps us understand how to write the code and access these elements of our code. In this case, we simply just can't call the element directly. We're probably going to have to find out some other way to print things off. And spoiler alert, kids, this is what the rest of the lesson is about. Hopefully this video helps you understand array elements a little better. As always, kids, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. See you later, kids. Bye. Bye.